It is unequivocal that human activities are responsible for climate change.
Global temperatures are set to rise beyond the target limit of 1.5 degrees Celsius unless there are rapid and immediate reductions in greenhouse gas emissions.
The alarm bells are deafening. The United Nations today issuing
a code red for humanity.
You will have seen the headlines, but a couple of weeks on and they're fading out of view. The news cycle carries on, and so must we. But with 2 more IPCC reports coming out pretty soon, along with an international climate conference coming up, climate change won't be staying out of the news for long. So let me tell you about August's report, about some key climate change moments coming up in the next few months, and a few things that you can do in the meantime. First off, let's briefly break down the report that's just come out. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Working Group 1 Assessment Report 6, to be exact. The IPCC is the international body of science set up by the United Nations back in 1988 to assess the science related to climate change. It is a group of hundreds of leading scientists, all volunteering their time to produce rigorous and balanced scientific info, which all culminates in a report that's released every few years. We are now on the 6th of these assessment reports, and this one in particular is split into 3 parts, led by 3 working groups. The first of these parts was just released a couple of weeks ago, and then the last 2 I will talk about a little later on in the video. The full report is 3,949 pages long. But, thankfully, it is very nicely summarised in a much more consumable 39-page summary for policymakers. That's what I've read for this video, that's probably what a lot of news outlets that you've seen have read, and I'd say it's pretty accessible. You watching this video, you could read it and understand probably a very good amount of it. But if 39 pages is also too long for you, then there's actually a nice little 2-page summary document, which, along with everything else, I will link in the description below. But if that 2-page document is too long for you as well, then let me briefly run you through what the report is and what it says. This report is the most up-to-date physical understanding of our climate system on Earth and climate change. Now, one of the main findings from this report compared to the last one is that it is unequivocal that human influence has warmed the atmosphere, ocean, and land. In reports gone by, there had been a tiny bit of uncertainty of whether it was humans influencing the climate. A tiny bit of uncertainty which would be expected in almost any scientific conclusion. That's not something that should be a surprise. Pretty much all scientific conclusions come with some uncertainty. But in this case, that's been crushed out. This is strong terms from the IPCC report. This is indisputable fact. Humans have increased the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, particularly carbon dioxide, which has meant that the Earth has warmed by 1 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial levels. Now, this is an average, so in some regions of the world that number is higher, and in some regions of the world that number is lower. So far, as a result of this warming, we've seen some not so great changes, but today, right now, things are okay. They're not great, but they're okay. However, we're pretty confident that now and going forward, extreme events such as heat waves, droughts, and where we have enough data, heavy precipitation, are going to become more frequent and more intense. We seriously want to avoid the worst of this if we can. And we can if we drastically reduce our carbon dioxide emissions and hence reduce future warming. But if we don't, or don't soon enough, then these extreme events will become really bad. Extreme events will become more frequent and have the chance of doubling up, whereby one event, like a heat wave, will then be followed in quick succession by another event, like a drought, to really decimate an area, and extreme events will become more intense, breaking records that we really don't want or need to be broken, as we see these events happen at scales that we have never seen before, or that we are prepared to deal with. Now, there are further regional breakdowns which give a little more detail, but for the most part, that's the report. It's bleak. If you're a geography student or on a similar course like me, then we've got a great new source to cite in our essays. If you're a politician, you've got all the more grounds to make the necessary changes ASAP by supporting climate-positive legislation. And if you're anyone else, you've got a great cause for concern. But you might not be too sure about what to do with that. But as time moves on and the IPCC report leaves the headlines on your feed and your front page, don't let it go from out of sight to out of mind. There are some key moments when it comes to fighting climate change coming up in the next few months, and several things that you can do in the meantime. So what should we keep an eye out for next? Well, remember how this is Working Group 1's report? Well, there are 2 more in the pipeline, 3 more if you include the synthesis report, which will bring together all 3 working groups. In February of next year, Working Group 2's report on climate change impacts, adaptations and vulnerability will come out. And just a month later, Working Group 3's report on climate change mitigation will be released as well. But let's rewind a little bit and go to Scotland. Because in less than 3 months' time, Glasgow will be hosting the 26th UN Climate Change Conference of the Parties, or COP26 for short. I'm not in Glasgow right now, I'm about 70 miles away in St Andrews. I've also just moved in. This is the only corner of my room that's not currently a mess. We're working with what we've got for the rest of this video. The COP26 summit will aim to accelerate action towards the Paris Agreement, the landmark climate change treaty agreed to back in 2015 at COP21 in Paris. And this year could be just as important. COP26 will be the first UN climate change conference since the COVID-19 pandemic, marking almost 2 years since the last one back in December of 2019 in Madrid. This will be the first COP since the Biden administration had the United States rejoin the Paris Agreement ever since Trump pulled them out of it. And this will be the first COP that is able to take advantage of the 6th IPCC report, or at least the part of it that's just come out. So yeah, it's a pretty big deal. But what are you gonna do? There's a pretty low chance that you watching this are a world leader who's going to be in attendance of this conference, so for the rest of us we may well feel disconnected, maybe even powerless, but that's not entirely the case. There's actually a lot that we can do in the meantime. Small individual actions are great. Sure, they can't match the immense scale of the issues that we're facing, but if we engage in them, then psychologically we're more likely to keep ourselves and those around us in the loop when it comes to climate change, and that is by no means a bad thing. Now, on to what you can do. As it happens, I just finished reading The Future We Choose by Christiana Figueres and Rivett-Carnac, 2 people who played a major role in leading COP21 in Paris that led to the Paris Agreement. So here are 3 things that they say that you can do. The first is write to your local politician. With the IPCC report out and COP26 coming up pretty soon, now is a really crucial time when it comes to the politics of climate change. By expressing support of environmental measures to your locally elected representative, it gives them grounds to support them as well. The second is start eating less meat. Even cutting out meat for 1 day a week, like a meat-free Monday or something like that, can have a really great benefit. And gradually you can work that up to more and more days without meat as you learn new recipes and find more alternatives and get to know what you like. I myself am living with a vegan this year, so I'm going to lean into that and embrace it and learn and add a lot more veggie and vegan recipes to my recipe repertoire. Which I can't say is that big of a repertoire in the first place, but you know. Thirdly, start a conversation with someone who isn't particularly active when it comes to climate change. Be gentle with them and try and have some understanding for their point of view, but gradually you can open them up to their perspective and enlarge their view of things as well. And a final tip from me is keep learning and educating yourself. Keep watching videos on the topic, listening to podcasts, reading articles, reading books. This is a great one. Hell, read that 39-page IPCC report. Knowledge and understanding helps so much when talking to people who aren't particularly engaged with climate change, or to writing to your politicians, or even just carrying and looking after yourself through all of this as well. There's been some great explainers and resources emerged since the IPCC report came out, so I'll link to some of my favourites that have come out in the past couple of weeks in the description below, along with just some general resources that I recommend as well, so hopefully that can act as a good starting point. But thank you all for watching. I have, after far too long, moved back to university now. I have no idea what that's going to do to my upload schedule. I've got loads of geography student-based videos that I want to make, but I've not had my timetable yet, so I don't know how busy I'm going to be. We will figure that out. Uploads will come when they come. It's all the more reason to turn on notifications, and you can follow me on Twitter as well, where I'll be posting a lot of updates about how things are looking, what my new upload schedule will be, all that kind of stuff. But in the meantime, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Thank you for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.